Jameson Distillery, where they gave us...
What happened here was that barley was moistened and allowed to germinate or sprout. It was then immersed in water for at least 24 hours. After it was immersed in water, it was then spread out onto the malt house floor where it began to germinate or sprout. Now we did not want it to germinate or sprout.
They had quite a display.
As it was known in the time. Now Gordon Gus is not Gus, we all lads know, but he's a rap figure. And behind Gordon Gus is a list of these nicknames, and some of them are quite funny, like Slippery Nipple, Twisty, Chicken, Misery, but I wouldn't like to work with him, and Gordon Gus and the like. Now behind me is the Customs and Excise Office. Now the person responsible for this job was employed by the government, and generally speaking he was not a very liked man. He was not a very liked man. Because he had two main responsibilities. First of all, he had to calculate the amount of duty paid to the government, and secondly, he had to test or prove the whiskey. And this was done through a very technical procedure. What happened here was a sample of each cask was taken, gunpowder was added, and a match was lit. Now, if there was no explosion whatsoever, it meant that the whiskey was unproof, and therefore could not be sold to the general public. However, if a blue flame resulted, it meant the whiskey was just perfect, so therefore could be sold to the general public. However, if there was an explosion, it meant that the whiskey was overproof. And as a consequence, in the distillery, what happened here was that if the whiskey was overproof, the employee would get this overproof whiskey at a reduced rate. And as a consequence, there were many parties and lots of door heads in this same world. Now, to the left of me, we have the back.
This is one of the many bridges crossing over the river. This is our favorite pub, the Bleeding Horse, built in 1649. This was the Irish Museum, of Modern Art, which we walked through, and we walked through the field behind it to get to the Kilmainham Gaol, which was a prison built in 1796 on the other side of this wall, looking back from going through the wall there. This is the prison here. A lot of movies were filmed here, all the way up into the present. It hasn't been used since, I think, the 40s.
Without any source of nourishment. But then also they couldn't pay the rent on the lands and they were evicted, put onto the side of the road. So then, no food, no shelter. Commit a crime, have yourself placed in jail, then at least you have some form of shelter over your head, and while you're in jail, the authorities have to feed you. When the authorities realised what the people were doing, the response was to reduce prison rations by 1/5, to try to make jail a less pleasant option for these unfortunate people. Now you will remember how I told you over in the evening about this being a reform.
This is a view inside of one of the cells through the peephole.
That was the theory. The reality was quite different. This jail was frequently overcrowded, and at least...
Here's the second floor with the doors of the cells. Some of the views of the outside.
We were in here on this particular yard here. This was the children's exercise yard. Children would be held up in here for 23 hours a day, and allowed for 1 hour's exercise, and that had to be taken in total silence. Some children would be in here because the parents...
Ozzy was getting a little bored.
And there would be nobody on the outside to look after the child, so the child would have to accompany the kid. But other children were here as criminals in their own right. The youngest who we are aware was an 8-year-old girl by the name of Olivia Kelly. In the winter of 1839, she stole a truck from a lady to keep herself warm, and for that time she was given a sentence of 5 months hard labour. And This little boy here, what age are you?
9.
9 years of age. So think about it. A little girl, 1 year younger than this boy, put in here for 5 months our labour. Very interesting if you look at the records of the day, they're very clear about crimes by the poor were more matters of police than crimes of violence by the poor. We have on record that manslaughter, Palestine, or respectively, while other people were hanged for their crimes. Now I draw your attention to the red brick that the stone rock towards the edge of the wall over there. Maybe about 4 feet above the metal back and a little to the left of it. That was the location of one of the places in Mexico within this business place.
This is the yard where they kept the children that were in prison. As the guy was saying, some of them were younger than Ozzy. They were 8 years old.
You would have seen a little bit about this on the video presentation, a little earlier in the tour. But on the video, it would have said that 6 members of the Invincibles were hanged there. That is incorrect. It was 5 members of the Invincibles who were hanged there. Joseph Brady, Daniel Curley, Michael Fagan, Timothy Kelly, and Thomas Brown.
Here's one of the yards near the prison. This was the warden's apartment. More views of bridges over the river. This is U2's hotel, $1,000 a night for the penthouse. Here we are at Burdock's. Leo Burdock is a little fish and chips place that our friend Patrick told us about. It was probably the best fish and chips we had. Here's Trinity College, and behind it is Oscar Wilde's statue, the Oscar Wilde Memorial. Kind of an unusual statue. This is the Natural History Museum, built in 1856. These are Irish elk, which have been extinct for 150 years, 200 years, I forget, but a long time. Here's one of the main streets. This is the statue of Molly Malone, the trollop with the scallops. They had about a dozen different nicknames for her. This is Heathrow. We're heading back home. Tom and Ozzy passing the time. Getting ready to catch our plane back to San Francisco. A big yawn from Oz. There's lots of shopping to be done. And here we are in San Francisco waiting for Sue to come and pick us up. And a good time was had by all.